Travel has changed a lot since my father wrote Europe on $5 a day, but our mission hasn't. I'm Pauline Fromer of the Fromer Travel Guides, and on the Fromer's Travel Show, I share practical advice, meaningful stories, and conversations with some of the most trusted names in the industry. If you're looking for ways to travel smarter and bring the world closer, I've got you covered. New episodes weekly at voyescape.com.
This is a Voyescape podcast. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
Today, we are going to a city that holds a special place in my heart, a place where we started the Travel in 10 podcast back in 2005. One of the most dynamic, modern, and interesting cities in the world. I think it would be hard to find a place more vibrant than Tokyo. It's a place that Anthony Bourdain said if he could only eat in one city for the rest of its life, Tokyo would be it, and I fully agree. It is a place where during the 5 or 6 months that I lived there, every day we would go out and discover something new, a new neighborhood, a new restaurant. It was phenomenal. And I know Tim has had a chance to be there much more recently than me. He just got back a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to dig a little bit into some of what he had a chance to see and experience in one of my favorite cities, Tokyo. How are you doing today, Tim?
Good. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to be talking about Tokyo because, as I say, when we started this podcast, I actually called it Tokyo in 10, and it was going to be 10-minute clips of things to see and do around the city every week, me going around seeing and doing different things. And I would jump on the subway when we were living there and pop up at a random subway station and go record a podcast. And there was no shortage of content every day, and every time, every stop that I made, we found something interesting there.
Well, I think going forward, whenever we refer to this episode of the podcast, we have to call it Tokyo in 10.
There you
I
go.
think that's I agree with you. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. I was there just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it is a city, and I've been several times. Never lived there. That I think that would be an amazing experience. But I always say it's a city that you could visit 100 times and only scratch the surface. You think about the fact that it's a city of 14 million, but the metro area has close to 40 million people in the metro area. I mean, you think that's more people, I think, than currently live in Canada, where we both are, and where we both call home. And so, and I totally agree that it is a city where, if you're bored, just go outside. Just go outside. You don't have to walk far. You don't have to create a destination. You just walk a block to the right, or you walk a block to the left, and you're going to find enough fascinating things, to keep you occupied. And I love that Anthony Bourdain quote. It is definitely, and I know we're going to talk about food. It is definitely a city with so many things to eat. I mean, again, in one square block of the city, you might have 12 or 14 restaurants, and every one of them can seat 5 or 10 people, and everybody is packed in there enjoying their yakitori or their whatever. So an amazing, amazing city. And it is the future. I mean, I always say, like you said in the intro, if you want to see the future and the past in one place, that's definitely Tokyo. Yeah.
I always describe it to people, it is definitely super futuristic, but it's also kind of like a 1950s version of the future. It is like stepping onto another planet when you arrive in Tokyo, more so than anywhere else in the world, and more so even than anywhere else in Japan. It is an incredibly unique, vibrant place with a ton to do. And maybe we should start there today is kind of the what to do, and people, if they were to go back in the archives of the podcast, are going to find tons of suggestions on things to see and do in Tokyo. But you've had the much more recent experience here of just the last few weeks. So what are some of the kind of the happening things in the city right now that you would call out from a what to do perspective?
For sure. I would say, any first time visitor, there are a few things that you should definitely do. I mean, Tokyo Tower for the views, that's a great place to get a perspective on the size of this city. The Imperial Palace, you can't really visit on a regular basis, but you can get onto the grounds and see the Imperial Palace. So that or parts of it anyway. Those are kind of that's kind of the well-trodden path. But I want to talk about and Shibuya Crossing. This scramble stop in Shibuya, I think, is sort of Tokyo in a nutshell. All of the flashing lights and the neon and the human energy of that city, all at one intersection. They say every single time the light turns green there, as many as 3,000 people can cross the road at one time. And so when I was there just a few weeks ago, I think I don't know, I just couldn't quite wrap my mind around it. And I stayed there for about an hour, just crossing the road back and forth and just, enjoying all the different human dramas that were playing out, all the interesting people from around, Japanese people. So that was super cool. I do want to mention a couple things that maybe a first time visitor wouldn't necessarily think to do. I know you want to talk a little bit about Ginza, and Ginza is definitely one of the coolest shopping neighborhoods in Tokyo. And it is there is there's Chanel and there's Louis Vuitton, and it's kind of the Fifth Avenue of Tokyo. But my favorite store, I'm not really much of a Louis Vuitton guy. My favorite store is called Itoya, and it is a 12-story store that sells stationery. So they sell pads and pens, and they have for some reason an herb garden on the top floor, and they have meeting rooms. And the pens that I use to take notes as a travel writer, you can only find at that store. So the last time I was there, which is a few years ago, I bought 7 pens, and seven of the six of them either broke, or the last one, in a fit of jet lag, fell out of my hand into the Aegean Sea off of Croatia. And so I was down to 1 pen. So I went back there on this last visit. I bought 10 more. So I got 10 of these tiny little silver pens that you can only get at Ginza. And I have a notebook cover. This may not be interesting to the average listener, but I have a notebook cover that says Ginza Tokyo that I had custom made there, which I love. And I know you want to talk a bit about Ginza. I just want to mention one other thing. And I think every visitor to Tokyo should ride a train. Whether you're just riding the subway, or the JR. I mean, they have this sprawling system of subway and surface trains all around Tokyo. Um, Stations have their own song. So even just being in the station and hearing this, I always say it's kind of like Mozart interpreted by Nintendo, this sort of like, you know, uh, these songs that play when the doors are closing to warn people that the doors are closing. So even just seeing the range of vending machines in the stations, they buy everything from the usual things, pop or whatever, to t-shirts. You can buy, you think of it, you can buy it from a vending machine in a Tokyo train station. And I took a train last time, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this on a different episode, from Tokyo to a place called Nikko on this super cool, again, futuristic train called the Spacia X on the Tobu line that had, I sat in a lounge that had a glass wall where you could actually see the engineer driving the train. And that was just a little day trip out of Tokyo. So, I mean, a million things we could talk for the whole episode, and 10 more about things to do in Tokyo. But I want to know, if you're doing an episode of Tokyo in 10 right now, what are some of the things you would talk about, and where are some of the places you would visit?
Well, I'll start off with a well-known and well-trodden one, and then maybe some that are a little less known. But to start off with, I mean, one place that has drawn me back every single time I've gone to Tokyo is Sensoji Temple in Asakusa. So this is a very much historic part of the city. Tokyo's oldest temple with this traditional shops and snacks and stuff leading into the temple itself. I just find it is such a unique, rich in history place to really capture a glimpse of the city that you don't get anywhere else. Would highly recommend Sensoji Temple as somewhere to seek out when you're visiting Tokyo. And for me, it's, as I said, not just been on my first trip, but on every trip that I've ended up going back there. Maybe a little bit more offbeat one, NHK, which is their sort of national broadcaster. There's this NHK Studio Park, which is not far from Shibuya Crossing. Interactive facility where you can try your hand at being a Japanese news reader, see some Japanese game shows, all kinds of crazy exhibits. It's good fun. And if I remember, it might have even been free to get into or quite low cost to get into. So NHK Studio Park was quite a cool one. And then, as you mentioned, there's a lot of cool shopping throughout the city. One of my favorite stores in the world, is also in Ginza, which is Muji, a Japanese brand that now has expanded a bit around the world, but started in Japan. They're really known for being a brandless brand, is kind of their tagline. Minimalist design philosophy. They've got their flagship store, massive store in Ginza, where you can really get a sense of their kind of vast array of cool Japanese lifestyle products that they make there. But I love your example of like your store with your favorite pen, because I think it's just like iconic. It really speaks to what Tokyo is all about, right? With 40 million people all packed into such a small area, it doesn't matter what niche, what like, there is a store, there is a restaurant, there is a performance happening at any given time that appeals to any specific niche you can imagine anywhere in the world, right? From these weird, obscure jazz clubs to the store that makes, this one type of pen or one type of eyeglasses, or there is specialization is something that, and craftsmanship is something that you will see more in Tokyo than I think anywhere else, and it doesn't just come through in shopping, but in food as well, where you tend to find these hyper specific restaurants that here in the West, you go to a restaurant, usually you've got you get pizza or a burger or a salad or whatever. There will be a place that makes just one type of salad, and the guy who's been making it has like dedicated his life to making that salad as well as anyone in the world could make it. And then you go seek that out. And a lot of the restaurants in the city, that's the case. They make, just one very specific type of cuisine, or even one specific dish that they are known for. So it really makes for a really vibrant dining and culinary scene in the city.
Absolutely. And we were talking a little bit about Ginza. I think anyway, just before we move on to food, one of the coolest experiences I had there just on my recent trip was I went into a store that had the Nissan brand, the car brand on the front. I thought, oh, it's interesting. Maybe I'll go in and there'll be like catalogs where you can like look at the details about the cars or whatever. I went in, they had like cars in the store. Like it wasn't like a dealership, and they had a race car, an actual like IndyCar, Formula One type race car. So definitely specialization, and just, whatever you can imagine, it's going to be available there in Tokyo, in terms of food as well. And in Ginza, I stayed there once, and we're going to talk about hotels a little bit later, but there are so many tiny little restaurants there that are, I think every building probably has like 5 restaurants in it. And some of the places, and I don't even have the names written down here, I would just recommend for listeners to go and just maybe ask a local friend, or just try, places out. And I do have a couple places I'm going to recommend, but a place 3 floors down in the basement that you wouldn't anticipate would have good food, and probably wouldn't, in most cities. I remember dining there, and we did like 10 courses. And it really was like that scene in Lost in Translation where they put the plate down in front of them and some of the seafood is still moving. It's they do innovative and interesting things with food in Tokyo. A couple places I want to mention, and they're all, interestingly enough, for me, they're all kind of low. One is high end, and I'm going to talk about the teppanyaki at the Ritz-Carlton. We're gonna talk about hotels later. But teppanyaki is such an amazing Japanese experience. You know, ostensibly it's like steak and rice and whatever, but the show, you know, the people who prepare it, you sit for those who don't know, you sit at a long bar with a flat top in front of you, and the chef will prepare this steak and he will slice it and he will dice it and sometimes throw it in the air. Sometimes they'll do a huge flame. I went to another place in Japan in Hiroshima that only had 2 or 3 tables, and every time the chef would do, you know, a huge flame or flip something, the other table would, which was filled with Japanese people, would go, "Oh, wow," and, you know, for my benefit, but when they did it for them, they didn't necessarily, they were just kinda like, "Okay, you know, just please put it on my plate, I'm ready," you know? But, you know, the teppanyaki at the Ritz-Carlton is fantastic. Memory Lane, which has another name that I won't mention that's more common, but, what they wanted us to call Memory Lane now is a great place, right near Shinjuku Station. It's actually an area, it's like a back alley, with, decorated with flowers during Sakura season. They'll have all the cherry blossoms, and it's got so many tiny little, mostly yakitori places, which is, you know, meat on a stick, and they'll be cooking it over an open flame, and just the scent wafting out my mouth is, I'm not even hungry, but my mouth is watering right now. Thinking about my visits there. Two quick other recommendations, and then we can move on. I love, there's a fast food chain I love called Pepper Lunch. It is not high end. It is a Japanese, where they put raw meat on a hot plate, and you basically cook it yourself, you know, in front of you, and you can have it done as much as you want, because you're cooking it. I'm not sure this is something that would work necessarily in other parts of the world, but the Japanese are very fastidious and very careful, and it definitely works there. And Ichibanya, which is a Japanese curry chain, and I love Japanese curry. Again, both kind of low on the price point and fast food, quick service, but done very, very well in Japan.
Well, the one thing I mean, I won't call it any specific restaurants because you've been there so much more recently than I have. But what I will say about the culinary and dining scene, the one recommendation I would have for people going there is, well, first of all, as you kind of alluded to already, like look up and look down, right? Because you're going to find restaurants on the 20th, the 10th, the 13th floor of the building that you're walking by, like every, just because of the how prime real estate is in Tokyo and how packed in everything is, you're going to find restaurants and shops on every level of every building that you walk by. So don't limit yourself to just, you know, what's on the street level for sure, because there are some great places. But also, you know, I think a lot of Westerners, because of the language barriers when they're in Japan for the first time, tend to defer to you know, a couple of different types of places. Often they'll go to there's these kind of vending machine style restaurants, right, where you can kind of see in the vending machine what you're getting. You get your little ticket, and then they present you with your dish. So that's very easy if you're, you know, you're facing a language barrier, or also they also often have these very intricate displays, art displays that are made to look like the actual food that's being served in the restaurant, that they have out in their front windows, which is super handy and easy. But like, push yourself a little further than that. Get Google Translate going, and if you see somewhere that looks like a restaurant, like get out and do some translation of the menu. They likely won't have an English menu, but that's where you're going to find those like hyper specialized restaurants, right? Is the ones that have absolutely nothing in English anywhere, you know, around them. There is no plastic food displays outside, but there is a chef inside who's creating a hyper specialized dish that they are probably better at making than almost anyone anywhere in the world.
I will say I love the plastic food displays. That's not something I've seen in other countries, and I will say every time I look at the plastic food displays and I think something is cheese, I am a big fan of cheese. It is always egg. It is
Yeah.
never it's almost never cheese in Japan. But no, I completely agree on looking up and looking down. And speaking of looking up, I mean, you know, Japan is definitely, in general, and Tokyo specifically, is a place where so much exists up high. I mean, I had my hair cut there a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, and I thought the barber shop was in a mall, and I walked around the mall for like half an hour, couldn't find it. Went to the information booth at the mall, and of course, the Japanese tend to be very helpful and prepared to respond to questions. And in this case, they definitely were. They had a series of laminated maps of the area and pointed out where to go. And the place to get my haircut that I had seen on Google Maps was actually on the 50th floor, 50, of the third largest building, tallest building in Japan. So that was very interesting. And I think this kind of leads naturally to my favorite place to stay in Tokyo, which is, and I just stayed there a couple of weeks ago, the Ritz-Carlton, which is really, both of us have spent many, many nights in hotels. This is a hotel that I don't think I've ever had a stay that was quite like this. The lobby of the hotel at the Ritz-Carlton Tokyo is on the 45th floor. So the check-in, you come on in from the street, you park, you hand your keys to the valet or you get out of the taxi, get on an elevator, and you go 45 floors. I mean, there are countries that don't have 45-story buildings. The lobby, the bottom floor of this hotel is on the 45th floor. And when I got to the 45th floor, they said, actually, sir, you're in one of the club suites. So your check-in is on the 53rd floor. So I got back on another elevator and I went another 8 floors up to check in at the club lounge. And the suite that they had put me in was 180. It was like a corner suite, 180-degree views of the city. And during the day, it was spectacular. At night, it just like, I mean, this is a cliche, but it really did take my breath away. Like the glimmering lights and the bridges and the Tokyo Tower and all of the city just at your feet. I would sometimes, and maybe this is, too much information. I would just churn out all the lights and just look and just enjoy looking out the window. Just a really incredible view. I mean, the hotel itself was beautiful, deep soaker tub. The club lounge was, again, beautiful views, really good food. The lobby bar had live music every night. But I mean, I'll never forget those views. Really incredible. I'll just mention two other quick recommendations. Hyatt House, where I also stayed on this recent trip. So it's in the Hyatt brand. Hyatt House is more of their long stay. Hotel Tokyo, of course, is a very popular city for business travelers. This was a hotel that was oriented that way. So after stepping off a cruise ship and having a wonderful cruise, I had a lot of laundry to do. So it actually had a washing machine in the suite, which is something I appreciated, and a self-contained kitchen in the suite, which was actually nice. Even though there's so many places to eat in Tokyo, it was kind of nice to be able to just do breakfast in the suite. And Hyatt Centric, um, in Ginza, a neighborhood we've talked about quite a bit. It is a small hotel with intense focus on detail, like all of the Hyatt Centric hotels around the world. Located in a former newspaper office, something I definitely appreciate as a travel writer. And the theming of the hotel played off of both um the legacy of being in a newspaper office and the neighborhood around, and brought that outside in. What about you, David? Where do you like to lay your head when you're in Tokyo?
Well, I'll say a few things when it comes to hotels. I mean, you've talked about a couple of great luxury properties, and there are a lot of incredible luxury hotels throughout Tokyo. And the good thing right now with the exchange rates in Japan, they're really quite much more affordable than they've been in many years to stay in a lot of those luxury hotels. I mean, a classic one that I think a lot of people gravitate towards, the Imperial Hotel, one of the oldest hotels in the city. You talked about a couple of the Hyatt properties. They've had a lot of really cool hotels throughout the city. The Park Hyatt, where Lost in Translation was filmed, is in a really cool part of the city. The Grand Hyatt in Roppongi, which is right next to the Ritz-Carlton where you stayed. And that Ritz-Carlton, I was actually in Tokyo when it very first opened, and it was kind of the anchor of a whole redevelopment of the city. That the part of the city that's in Roppongi. You know how in Western cities we've got like a Chinatown or a Japantown. Roppongi was kind of the America town of Tokyo. It was where all the Westerners hung out, and because of that, it was a little bit seedy, a lot of like bars and stuff there, and it wasn't necessarily the best part of the city. But then this massive redevelopment called Roppongi Hills happened there, a huge luxury mall that was built, the Ritz-Carlton being one of the main kind of anchor tenants. The Grand Hyatt Tokyo is just around the corner from there. And it's really revitalized that entire area. And Roppongi Hills is somewhere I would definitely recommend going and checking out. A lot of cool stuff to see and do in and around there, including my can't miss in the city as we get to the end of the episode that we'll talk about is in the Roppongi Hills district. But then on the other spectrum, one last thing I will say on luxury hotels in Tokyo is that they've all got Western style rooms, but the vast majority of them also have tatami rooms, Japanese style rooms with tatami floors. They're usually a fair bit more expensive, but if you can stretch your budget, that's definitely a unique experience to stay in one of the Japanese style rooms there. And if not, in one of the luxury hotels throughout the city, there's lots of ryokans, Japanese inns that have those traditional tatami rooms as well. That I think that's experience you've got to have when you're in Japan is staying in one of those. But also, as you would expect from Tokyo, there is no shortage of weird and quirky accommodations as well. And I was actually scheduled to be in Tokyo last year. I had to reroute my travel plans changed, so I ended up not my flight got rerouted. I didn't end up getting my couple of nights there, but the hotel I booked myself into, and that I definitely want to check in next time I'm there, is a very inexpensive hotel, but it's got multiple locations throughout the city called Book and Bed, where they have actually created their bookstores that have almost kind of capsule hostel-like accommodations built right into the bookshelves that you stay in the bookstore for the night, and just weird and quirky. So I wanted to go check that out on my next trip to Japan, and I know they've got one in Shinjuku, another in Ikeburo, so there's a number of them throughout the city.
That as somebody who loves to read, that sounds like a dream come true, and that's not a pun. It does sound like a dream come true. So to sleep in a bookstore, I love that, and definitely that whole area you were mentioning before about Roppongi. That is definitely a redeveloped area, and right next to the Ritz-Carlton, they actually built a mall. And I mean, again, we don't necessarily mostly recommend people go to malls when they're in a destination, but the malls are so interesting in Tokyo as well. And they had an outlet of this favorite stationery store of mine, Atoya. So I also went to the stationery store there, and I did committed a grave sin in Japanese culture. I actually ate a sandwich while sitting on the bench in the mall because I couldn't figure out where else to go other than back to my suite. And the Japanese have such fascinating folkways when it comes to behavior in public, and I ate my sandwich right next to a sign that said no eating, drinking, sleeping, or doing anything else on the bench, but I ate it as quickly as possible and received angry glares from 17 or 18 people that were around me in the mall. But very, very interesting. One other quick recommendation is that I forgot to put down in my notes is the Shangri-La, which is a wonderful hotel. It's basically attached to Tokyo Station. Train stations in Japan. I think of the top 10 busiest train stations in the world, 9 are in Japan. And Tokyo Station is definitely a station where you can get lost. And I literally did get lost. And but the Shangri-La really a special, beautiful property, and it's right there at Tokyo Station, which I believe the Imperial Hotel is right next to Tokyo
Is right
Station.
there as well. And I know you've called this out earlier, but I would say like in 5 months, 6 months of living in Tokyo, I never took a cab, never an Uber, never rented a car. It is definitely a place that like it is the best underground subway system anywhere in the world. So like definitely you could do your whole trip there with never needing a car, and even traveling across Japan. I mean, I've done multiple trips to cities all across Japan, and never had to rent a car for any of them. I mean, just the train system and train transportation there is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, you'll look up a destination in the city or in the country, and you'll often have multiple trains that service that destination, in the city or in the country. So yeah, it is definitely one of the best places, probably the best place in the world to ride a train. And that might sound like my can't miss. I'm going to actually have a different can't miss, which is I tend to be a baseball fan generally, but in Japan and in Tokyo, going to a baseball game is as much a cultural experience as it is an appreciation in sports. And so, but when I was there just a couple weeks ago, I was with a group of friends, and we ended up going to a baseball game. I think half the group, nobody had been to a baseball game before. Nobody watched baseball on television. Everyone still had a good time because of the spectacle that plays out on the field. I mean, the game is part of it, but they have cheerleaders, they have songs. Each team, similar to you'd get in soccer, each team has a cheering section, and so they have often instruments and drums, and each batter that comes to the plate has their own song. So you go to Skydome or Rogers Center, as they call it now here in Toronto, they'll play a song, like they'll hit play and play a song. In Japan, and I've been to a couple different stadiums in Japan, they sing a song or they have a chant, and each one for each batter is different. And I don't know, it's just such a fascinating spectacle. The show of it, the culture that comes through in the game is so interesting. Do you have a can't miss?
I do. I'm envious of you because in all the times of living there and traveling back and forth to Tokyo, I've always wanted to go to a baseball game, but timing's just never aligned, and I've never made it out to one. I've made it to a few sumo matches, which I would definitely recommend. And sumo is when the big annual sumo tournaments are happening throughout the country, everybody everywhere is watching and involved, and seeing the ritual and ceremony around that is very cool. So I would definitely recommend that. But my can't miss would be going back to the Roppongi Hills district in Tokyo. There is a great modern art gallery called, I think it's the Mori Art Museum, right at the top of the part of the Roppongi Hills complex where the Grand Hyatt Hotel is. Not only is it a great modern art museum, but by far, I think the best view of the city there as well. So you've got an opportunity to go see a great art gallery and also get this great viewing area of the city as well on this amazing gallery that's built at the top of this, God only knows how many story tower, in the middle of Roppongi Hills. So a really cool place to go check out.
That's very cool. I know we could talk about Tokyo. We could probably sit here for another 5 hours, and
I honestly think I could have kept doing 10-minute episodes every week about Tokyo since 2005 and would not have run out of content yet. Like every day there was something new to see, something new to do. It is just such a dynamic city. It is the place, a place where you can jump on the subway, pop up anywhere you want, and it's like you're emerging in a whole new city every new station that you come out at, and so much to see and do in each.
Well, I totally agree. We could probably do 10 minutes on every block in this. I mean, we went this whole time. We didn't even talk about Harajuku, and there's many interesting things there. Anyway, we'll have to revisit it definitely at some point. Really a pleasure to talk to you, David, about Tokyo, one of the most fascinating cities in the world.
Absolutely. Thanks, too. And as always, we would love to hear what all of our listeners think. If you've been to Tokyo, would love to know what some of your favorite spots are, anywhere that we've missed, although I know there's many places to talk about. And also would love for you to check out some of our other podcasts at voyescape.com.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, David. See you next week.
Thanks, Tim.
If you love travel, you'll love Winging It Travel podcast. Every Monday, I share stories from 75 countries, from backpacking tips, epic adventures, and plenty of travel inspiration. Alongside that, I host guest interviews every 2 weeks. Check it out at voyescape.com.